there everyone. Today's card I'm going to use a set of digital stamps from MyGrafico called the Wildflower stamp set, and it's by Mel's Brushes. And to use these on just normal pattern paper, what I'm doing is first I'm going to just paint on a layer of this acrylic matte medium gel, which it's an artist prep tool, and basically what it does is it just creates a almost water resistant layer between your paper and what you're printing onto it, and this just gives you enough time to whack your paper through the printer and then hit it with some embossing powder at the other end before it's dry, whereas normally you wouldn't be able to do this on a lot of papers because they just soak up the printer ink too fast. So I'm just literally putting a really thin layer on, and you can see that you can't see it at all. It's totally matte and it's totally see-through. So it doesn't change your paper, patterned paper at all. And here I've just hit it with the clear embossing powder on the black ink, so that'll come up with the black raised embossing effect once I hit it with my heat tool. And I've done that with all of these designs here, and I'm just going to cut these out. And I'm going to do a little bit of paper layering. So instead of leaving my usual border around the edge of everything I'm cutting out, this time I'm just going to literally cut right on the line. It takes a bit more effort, and you have to go a bit slower just to make sure you're not making any mistakes. But I think it's a really nice effect once you spend the time to do that. Anyway, I've cut them all out, and I've got my base card here nearly ready. What I'm doing is scoring at 10.5 centimeters. And I know that's halfway, but I want my design printed straight onto the base card. Now I could feed the paper through my printer, but I would run the risk of not having it where exactly I want it on the card. So what I'm doing is sticking the card to an A4 sheet of paper, which my printer would normally have run through it. And I've already printed off this design onto A4 paper, so I know exactly where it's going to be on the paper. And I'm just putting my base card over that printed design, so I know that when I do print it out it's going to be exactly the right place and I'll be happy with it. So I'm just tearing off that. I just used temporary adhesive so it's not stuck or anything. So I can just fold that card, and this my base card is ready. I just want to do a little border. As usual, I'm using my Fiskars border punches. This is an old favourite one. I can't remember what it's called. Is it Threading Water, maybe? I don't know. It'll be in the credits at the end anyway. And I'm just lining it up along the bottom and to match it with the pattern on the border punch. And I'm doing this both sides until I've got a border long enough to go across the bottom of my card. And I know that's long enough now, so... And then I'm going to cut this to size. I just want a really thin border because the design is quite a big design that I'm using for this card, so I don't want the border to be too big and overwhelm it. And because it's so thin, I'm not going to be able to just adhere it down with my roller adhesive like I normally do. I'm going to put it down with some PVA glue, just wet PVA glue. And I do this by drawing the line on the card where I want it to be attached, but you could attach it by putting the glue on the actual border bit you've just punched out. And I'm just lining that up with the grid pattern on my my cutting mat just to make sure I've got it level. I think I put a bit too much glue on because it kept moving around, but it dried fine in the end. You really don't need as much glue as you think when using wet glue. So next up I'm going to zoom in really close, and I'm going to show you how I coloured in this this flower, and I'm using these two Copic markers and just a normal pencil crayon. Because I don't own many Copic markers, I've bought the darkest and the lightest colours in each colour that I could afford, but in this pink I've only actually got this one colour, and it's way too dark to be doing any kind of blending with the blender pen by itself. So what I'm doing here is I'm filling in the areas that I know want to be dark and the most shaded, and then I'm going over it using my pencil crayon and just kind of blending the colour into the actual pattern paper so it's not quite so stark. And this is a really good way of cheating on using Copic markers because, you know, you'd need to buy at least sort of 3 or 4 to produce this effect using Copic markers alone, although it's probably better for your blender pen. And basically the next step is to go over what you've done using your colourless blender, just in a circular motion, and blend in all of the pencil crayon with the alcohol markers. It does make a bit of a mess of your colourless blender, but that all rubs off. Just scrub it on your scratch paper for a bit when you're finished until it runs clear again. And this way you can get loads of great shading effects. I mean, I've just done something quite simple here. But yeah, you could, you know, the world's your oyster. And I'm doing a similar thing here. I'm just shading in the leaves just to make them look a bit more 3D. And I'm just using, I think it's a mid-range grey. So it's not the darkest, it's not the lightest. But even so, it still looked a little bit stark. So I went over it with my colourless blender and literally just quickly scribbled over it. And it just blended it, and it always looks a lot better once it's blended in. So here I'm just using the bone folder to just create some 3D effect on my petals. And I'm just kind of scraping that across with my thumb and the bone folder until it bends the paper. And yeah, so it's not just a flat flower. It's got a little bit of lift here and there to it and makes it a bit more 3D. And then I'm using these 2 different sizes of 3-dimensional stickers. I'm going to use the deepest ones for my flower itself, because I want that to be, you know, the foremost in the frame. And then I'm going to use the smaller 3D stickers just to put some of the leaves on, so, you know, just to achieve different heights on the card. And some of the leaves I've just stuck down using glue, so they're not all at the same height. It gives a bit of liveliness to the actual card. I had great fun doing this, actually, because, you know, the world's your oyster. You can just go crazy with your design. And yeah, this card's not one of my usual kind of designs, so I really enjoy playing around with it and creating something a little bit different. So I'm just sticking all these on higgledy-piggledy. I did have a plan in mind of what I wanted to achieve, but yeah, I just went ahead and, you know, let it take me there. And then here I'm using my corner chomper as usual, and I did go back and do the top 2 corners as well, as I thought it would look a little bit more finished. But, you know, I think it would look fine just square too. Here I'm using these sentiments from Woodware. I think they're called Jane Script. And instead of just stamping it, you know, in a straight line as the stamp wants to naturally fall, I wanted to sort of mimic the line of that stem that's coming out along the bottom of the card. And to do that, I just kept playing around with the positioning of the stamp itself on the acrylic block until it mimicked the curve of that stem sticking out. And once I was happy with it, I got my Versamark ink and my white embossing powder and went ahead and stamped it. And for once, I actually remembered to use my anti-static sheet, which is just a dryer sheet that I use. It's an unused dryer sheet as well. I know a lot of people say it needs to be used, but I don't find that. I just use them straight out the packet, and they work just fine for me. I really notice now when I forget to use it, because you just get spots of embossing powder everywhere. So it's a really good tip, and it saves you a lot of money not using the accepted craft tools, static bags. And then I'm putting a bit of faux stitching around. I went around the whole edge of the card, and I just thought it framed it a little bit better because it's quite a bold design and it needed to be grounded, so that's what that faux stitching did. And that's it for today, so I hope you enjoyed the card, and I'll be back soon with another one. Thanks for watching, take care, bye!